Hey, you there. Happy New Year's Eve. That's right, 2024 is officially over. It's the last day of the year. Tomorrow is the first day of 2025, the year of Metroid Prime 4. And because it's the last day of the year, I thought what would be more fitting than one final random conversation that, yes, relates to the next generation Nintendo Switch console. Our 2024 hopes for the reveal of the Switch 2 are as officially dashed as they could ever possibly be. Because like I said, it's the last day of the year. We've got to wait till next year, man. And luckily that means we've got 3 months to go. Sometime between now and the end of March, they're going to reveal it to us. That was confirmed by Nintendo earlier this year. Today is the last day that I can call 2024 this year, so that feels crazy. But earlier this year, they told us that, hey, before March next year, we're going to let you know about it. And so we've got 3 months to go, man. The countdown is on. It's a very exciting time. I am very sad we didn't get the reveal this year. I think it would have been very nice. I know that we're all just losing our minds and waiting on pins and needles for Nintendo to reveal the darn thing and let us know what the future is going to look like. But they decided this wasn't the year, so we've got to wait till early next year. And so what I want to discuss regarding the next generation Switch is the name. And the fact that a whole new conversation and a whole new crop of angry people apparently has popped up over this last week in regards to the name of the console, and the fact that there are claims of people who think that they know what Nintendo is going to do, saying that it is absolutely going to be called the Switch 2. And because of that, if that's true, which honestly I tend to believe, if that's true, there are people angry about that name, and there are people angrily defending the name as well in response to the angry people. It's a whole crazy mess, and I'll even be honest, I haven't even really seen any of this conversation myself. I've only seen people who I know talking about the conversation and the fact that people are upset about this. And so, let's talk about it, man. Let's talk about this name, the Nintendo Switch 2. If that's the name of the console, like many of us believe and have theorized for a while, and now, yes, there are people claiming that they know that that's what the name is going to be, and apparently the official logo leaked. I don't know that I believe it, but that's a thing that exists and people have talked about. Is Switch 2 a bad name for the console? Should this make people upset or angry, or whatever level of freaking out that people are doing online? And in my opinion, no, people shouldn't be upset. And in my opinion, yes, I think it's a pretty good, fine, smart name. Look, I'm not going to pretend to have any revolutionary opinions here. I love and defend the Wii U as a console, but we know that the name is one of several things that hurt the console's chance at success right out of the gate. It was a strange name, it was a confusing reveal, and Wii U didn't do anything to clear up the confusion. The whole thing was very strange, and it probably should have just been called Wii 2. I sometimes wonder if Wii 2 would have been the name that could have actually saved that console and gave it a better chance at success. The success that it deserved based on the quality of the machine, the controller, and the library. But as we know, and as I've discussed for now 3 videos in a row, that didn't happen, and it really sucks. And so, yeah, as a lot of people have mentioned, Nintendo's attempt to kind of get quirky with their naming convention with the Wii U didn't work out. There are other reasons beyond the name why the console never really got any traction. But the name, like I said, is definitely one of the bigger contributing factors. And so don't try to get cute with your names. Streamline and be simple. And in the Switch era, everything Switch, if you think you break down the Switch era of Nintendo to its DNA, its bare essentials, it's all about being simple. It's streamlined. It's a fast UI with no bells and whistles. It is a console that has a clearly defined function. You plug it in for TV, you pick it up for handheld. That's all you do. The games, the messaging, the marketing, everything about it has been as simple and straightforward as possible. And look at how well it worked. The thing has sold 146 million freaking units, and it's going to cross 150 before all is said and done. Maybe even higher. Who knows what the final benchmark is going to be. The thing is a bigger success than anyone could have ever possibly have dreamed. And it deserves it. It's a great console with a great library. And so when you look at how the weird name of the Wii U didn't work out for them, and you look at how the simplicity of the Switch era did work out for them, it's hard to make a case for anything other than a simple Switch 2 name for the next console being a better idea. They should probably just call it Switch 2. Now, I also have no problem admitting to you guys that I do think that name is boring. Like, all things being equal, if I could live in a world where the name wasn't going to have any impact on the success, and I could just pick a name, I wouldn't call it Switch 2, simply because I would like something more fun, or I don't know, I guess fun is maybe the word, you know? I mean, Super Switch has been around forever. Sure, that's fine, the Super Switch, the Super Nintendo Switch, whatever. Switch Next, Switch Up, all of these other quirky ideas have been thrown around out there. Some of them I've liked, some of them I don't. The point is, I don't even necessarily have a name that I think would be best, but I do think that Switch 2, it does become kind of stock and standard and cookie cutter, like it's not an exciting name. But the same way I think that the way a console looks doesn't matter to its quality, I also think that that's technically true for the name. So that's why I said all things being equal, and in a world where it wouldn't affect the sales, I would change it from Switch 2 to something else. But as many people have pointed out in the past, we've seen more evidence that weird names tend to hurt consoles and simple names tend to help consoles. Microsoft has had a hell of a time finding good names that lead to success for their consoles. Xbox One was a terrible name. The series names, Series X and Series X, I guess they're not really good or bad, but the Xbox isn't really doing all that well, so you could say that that's maybe one of the things holding it back. And obviously Nintendo with the Wii U, that didn't really work out. And you know, some people want to lump the Nintendo 64 and the GameCube into the not successful tier, and I think that there's truth to that because neither of them sold as well as the competition, but I also don't think that they were outright failures either. So that conversation gets muddy, but there is no doubt that when they were simpler with their names, things definitely seemed to work out, and that even applies to their handhelds, right? Game Boy, Game Boy Color, DS, 3DS, you know, new 2DS, all these different things, everything worked out very, very well. Game Boy Advance, of course, being one. And then we look at the most obvious example where simple names have worked out, and it's the PlayStation's entire history. They've been very simple and straightforward. It's just a bigger number every time. PlayStation, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, 4, now 5. In theory, the next one will be the PlayStation 6. And they've knocked it out of the park every time. All of their consoles have sold insanely well. Even though the PS3 took a long time to gain any traction, when all is said and done, it still surpassed 80 million units, and that is a massive hit no matter what console or generation you're talking about. And so that's why, yes, we can apply that same kind of a logic to Nintendo. Maybe we've entered the era where Nintendo is going to start just numbering their consoles. Switch 1, Switch 2, Switch 3, Switch 4. You know, I don't really know they're going to make 4 Switches, eventually they're going to change it up. But I feel like this transition from Switch to the next generation needs to be handled so carefully. We've all discussed and thought about that in the past. There have been analysts that have mentioned that they've heard that Nintendo is aware they need to be very careful with the transition. They don't want things to crumble after the success of the Switch into the next generation. And so again, just like PlayStation's naming convention, I feel like the smart model for them is to just call the thing the Switch 2. Again, I would prefer a more fun name. I would prefer something quirkier or more innovative, but from a business perspective, the name Switch 2 is probably the smartest call. And as long as the console is good and as long as the library is good, that's all that's really going to matter. Of course, as you can imagine, a lot of the people, as I've heard, who are unhappy with the idea of it being called the Switch 2, they do, just like I said they do just want something more fun, something that feels more like classic Nintendo, where Nintendo's always surprising us and doing weird things that are sometimes confusing, sometimes amazing and innovative and changes everything, and that includes having fun with goofy names. And, I mean, I already mentioned twice how much I like that idea as well. I would pick a unique name if I could pick, but I think that we also have to factor in what the next generation console will do, because Nintendo tends to name their consoles based off of what the console does or the gimmick of the console. And so unless this thing does something totally different than switch between a TV and a handheld, I don't know what else they would call it. It's probably going to be another hybrid. We all expect that. It's going to be a handheld device. It's going to have a bigger, better screen. It's going to have some form of new Joy-Cons, and you're going to be able to dock it and play it on your TV. So if it's going to switch between the two, it's got to be called Switch. So that's why Switch 2 makes the most sense. Now, if this thing does something completely different, like it makes toast for you or something, you know, or it'll change the tire on your car, goofy examples I've joked about in the past, then you could call it the Nintendo Mechanics, right? Because you can play video games on it, and it'll also fix your car if there's a problem with your car. That's when you start doing goofy names, you know? When they came up with names like Wii and Wii U and Switch, they were all based on some sort of premise or model or gimmick to the console. If the Switch 2 or the next generation console does nothing different and it's just a more powerful Switch, why would they name it something else other than Switch 2? Because if there's no new gimmick, they have no basis to change that name off of. The last point I'll leave you guys with here in this kind of short last video of the year here about the Switch 2, of course, the next generation console, is that I do think it's worth noting, in a world where Nintendo doesn't name it the Switch 2, and they have some other weird name that maybe confuses us initially, even though I spent most of this video saying why the Switch 2 is the smart name business-wise, because it makes it easy for people to understand and it will sell more, Nintendo has also shown that they're so smart and so good with marketing when they're really on top of things. Wii U is not a good example, but everything else, you look at the Wii, you look at the Switch, when they've got everything firing on all cylinders, they can make anything successful and they can make anything work. And that includes if the name of the next generation console is something totally weird, out of left field, and even kind of dumb. Let's pretend they announce the name and it's actually something that most of us think is just a dumb name. Is that really gonna matter? No one understood or liked the name Wii when that came out. That was so foreign and goofy and no one liked it. But it became part of the lexicon. Wii is now just a word that we understand. W-I-I. Suddenly it made sense and now it's a thing that exists and it doesn't confuse anybody. The Nintendo Switch was weird because switch is like a verb. That's an action that you do. You switch things. So it didn't make sense for a console to be called Switch. But again, now it's part of the lexicon. It doesn't confuse anybody on the planet when they say Nintendo Switch. So if they call it, and I've said this before, if they call it the Nintendo Schmoopity-Doo, we're all going to say that's the dumbest thing ever, Nintendo. And then it's going to sell 75 million units because it's going to be a huge hit because Nintendo knows how to make things work. You know, another game example actually is Splatoon. The first Splatoon was a new IP that was this weird ink shooting squid game that was releasing on a console that was not successful, the Wii U. It was a brand new IP on an unproven console. And you know what happened? They sold like 5 million copies or something crazy. The first Splatoon was a huge hit on the unsuccessful Wii U. And that is another great example of Nintendo knew how to A, create a great game, but B, market and sell a great new idea on an unsuccessful console and created a franchise that's now 3 games deep and still going today. So I say all this to say, as much as we can all hem and haw about this is the right name and this is the bad name, no matter what Nintendo does, there's such a great chance that they can make it work anyway. It might not even matter. That being said, I think the last message I want to leave you guys with at the end of this year is any name is going to be okay with me, but their smartest name probably is the Switch 2. I know we like Fun Nintendo. Hopefully we just get Fun Nintendo in the games they make. Let's leave the name to the business people who just want to make sure that it's simple for people to understand and buy. So that's what I think. Share your thoughts below. Quick little video to wrap up the year. I hope you guys have a happy, fun, and safe new year. I will see you guys in 2025, the year of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond.